Welcome to Reddit Echoes, where stories that sound like movie plots turn out to be very real. Today you're about to hear situations so insane, even the people living through them couldn't believe it was happening. A young woman forced to marry her cousin while the entire family joined in on the pressure. A best friend who slept with her friend's husband then had the audacity to play victim online. And a heart-shattering betrayal discovered right on a brand new wedding bed. These aren't just stories. They're emotional earthquakes, the kind that make you ask yourself, if that were me, would I even survive it? And hey, if you think your life is already peak drama, stick around till the end. You just might change your mind. Story 1. My family wanted me to marry my cousin, so I blew up the family reunion. I'm a 24-year-old woman from Pakistan, and to most people my life might seem perfectly normal. Traditional family, good education, decent looks. But if someone asked me what the most horrifying experience of my life was, I wouldn't even have to think. It was being pressured by my entire extended family to marry my cousin. Yes, my cousin. It sounds bizarre to many, but in my culture, cousin marriage is pretty common. And sadly, this has haunted me since I was just a young teenage girl. When I was about 13 or 14, my aunt, his mom, started making these jokes that didn't feel like jokes at all. You're going to make such a good daughter-in-law, or you two look perfect together. At first, I just forced a smile and hoped she'd stop if I didn't react. But no, the comments kept coming more often, more direct and more persistent than a chronic illness. I said no, many times, clearly, politely. Every time we met, I tried to be respectful. Auntie, I'm not interested in marrying him. But it was like she was obsessed. She wouldn't stop, every time another passive-aggressive comment. It made me uncomfortable, and worse, it started giving my cousin the wrong idea. About 2 years ago, he began texting me directly. Stuff like, "We'll be married someday. You should start getting used to the idea." Me, I blocked him immediately. I wanted nothing to do with this forced fantasy. But then things started spiraling. At a family gathering, as I was just quietly sipping my orange juice trying to stay civil, my aunt decided to drop the act. She looked at me and said plain and clear, "You're old enough now. When are you marrying Kay?" The family's already made the decision. Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was her smug tone. Maybe it was my mother's silence over the years. Or maybe I was just exhausted from being treated like a bargaining chip passed between relatives. I stood up, heart pounding, and I remember yelling, "Are you crazy? How many times do I have to say no?" Do you even know what no means? I may have said a few impolite things after that, things I would normally never say to an elder. The entire room went silent. My mom tried to calm me down, but I was shaking with rage. My brother had to drag me out, practically carrying me to the car as I sobbed like a child. I thought that was the end of it, that finally they'd understand I didn't want this. But no, it was only the beginning of a family war I never could have imagined. My aunt called my mom, screaming over the phone that she had failed to raise a decent daughter, that I was disrespectful, that I had brought shame to the family. She even rallied some of the other aunts and uncles to cut ties with my mom entirely. And my mom, she was heartbroken. She didn't say much, but I'd hear her quietly crying behind closed doors. She told me she just wished I had handled it a little more gently, that she knew I had endured a lot, but she hadn't expected things to blow up this way. I knew I had hurt her. But I didn't know what else to do to stop myself from being pushed into a marriage with someone I didn't love, didn't choose, and who had zero respect for my boundaries. Then I heard my cousin got married to someone else. No announcement, no invite to our side of the family, and a while later they divorced. My aunt, yes, still not giving up, hinted that it was karma, and that he should have married my niece in the first place. It's almost laughable. I never even married the guy, and somehow I'm still being blamed for his failed marriage. I still feel a pang of anger when I think about it. But more than anything, I feel guilt for how much my mom suffered. She was caught between two worlds, tradition and her daughter. She chose silence for peace and ended up getting hurt the most. I wish I could go back in time. Not to change my decision, but to be more prepared, more composed, more firm, to make my stand without the explosion. But I don't regret speaking up. Because no matter the culture, no one should ever be forced to marry someone, especially a blood relative. Yes, I lost some family ties that day, but I kept something far more valuable: my self-respect and the right to choose my own life. Thank you for listening to my story. Standing up for yourself is never easy, especially when you're pushing back against a cultural system that's been in place for generations. But if you don't, you end up living in fear, guilt, and a future written by others. If you've ever been in a similar situation, remember saying no isn't rude, protecting yourself isn't selfish, and feeling uncomfortable or hurt doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Echoes for more real-life stories, sometimes strange, sometimes heartbreaking, but always honest. Story 2. The rude new hire called me a grumpy old lady, then found out I'm his dad's wife. Hey everyone, if you think the hardest part about marrying an older man is the age gap, let me tell you something: you've clearly never met his secret teenage son. I'm a 35-year-old woman. My husband Matt is 44. We've been married for 5 years, and honestly, I thought I knew everything there was to know about him. Turns out, there was a little software update I never got. A real-life surprise called Ben, his 19-year-old son from a past relationship Matt somehow forgot to mention. It all started on what should have been a normal work day. I'm an executive manager at a well-known coffee chain, can't say the name, but imagine Starbucks, just a little more upscale. That day I visited one of our newer branches to oversee operations and train the staff. Ben, though I didn't know his name at the time, was a newly hired barista working the morning shift. From the moment I walked into the store, the guy gave me attitude. Like full-on eye-roll, death stare, teenage boy contempt kind of attitude. I literally stepped into the bar area and he glared at me like I'd just insulted his mother. I ignored it. But when I suggested they reorganize the shelf layout, he mumbled loud enough for everyone to hear. She must be hitting menopause or something. Why should we do it her way? I froze. The entire cafe went dead silent. One young girl even whispered, "Ben, what the hell?" But he just smirked and turned away. Now I'm not one to lose my temper easily. But that day I snapped. I walked straight up to him, stared him down and said, "Ice cold, I don't care who you think you are. But while you're wearing that apron in my store, you treat me and this job with respect. If that's a problem, the door's right there." He rolled his eyes again, muttered something crude under his breath, and walked off. I managed to hold it together for exactly 2 more minutes before pulling out my phone and calling my husband. That night I told Matt everything. He sat there silent, tense. I asked, "Do you know him?" Matt hesitated. His eyes dropped. He said nothing. Then he pulled out a worn piece of paper from his drawer. A birth certificate. Mother Megan, Father Matthew. Yep, it was him. I was speechless. "You have a 19-year-old son, and you never told me," I asked. He nodded, looking like a guilty schoolboy. "I didn't think he'd ever show up." "Yeah, well, he did. And not just in our lives. He showed up under my management, insulted me in front of staff, and turns out he's your actual flesh and blood." What is this, a Colleen Hoover novel? Ben didn't come in the next day, but I wasn't about to let it slide. I called HR, asked for a background check, and yep, Matt had been sending child support to someone named Megan for years. It was all there in the tax records, meaning he'd kept this secret from me from day one. Matt tried to explain, half apology, half. I have a complicated past excuse. He said Megan was a one-night stand, that they split after a drunken mistake, that Megan never wanted Ben to know who his father was, that Ben had only recently found out and reached out to connect, and that Matt didn't tell me because he didn't want to hurt me. Hurt me. Oh, honey, this wasn't hurt. This was betrayal. A week later, Ben returned to work. I called him into the back office. Do you know who I am now? I asked. He looked straight at me and replied flatly, Yeah, my dad's wife. I nodded. Then you know how badly you disrespected me. Ben scoffed. I don't need some stepmom teaching me life lessons. I clenched my fists. I'm not your stepmom. I'm your boss. And in this building, I don't care whose kid you are. If you insult someone, you deal with the consequences. I suspended Ben for 1 week for insubordination and inappropriate language. He walked out without saying a word. That evening, Matt got an email from Megan's lawyer accusing me of discrimination and psychological harm to Ben. I lost it. I sat in the kitchen, stared Matt in the eyes, and asked, Why? Why didn't you tell me? Didn't I deserve the truth? He buried his face in his hands. I was afraid you'd leave me if you knew I had a son. I didn't reply right away. But in my head, one thought echoed. You didn't trust me enough to let me decide. 1 month later, I filed for a legal separation. Not because I hated Matt, not to punish him, but because I needed to reclaim myself. I needed space to think, to breathe, to stop juggling the roles of wife manager and accidental villain in a family drama I never signed up for. Ben eventually quit. I heard he got a job at a local bakery. Megan occasionally posts shady stories on social media calling me the woman who broke up a family. I say nothing. Matt keeps trying to reconcile. He sends letters, flowers, even offered to go with me to meet Megan face to face and clear the air. But I'm not ready. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones you trusted the most. And what's worse is when they stay silent while others hurt you because of the secrets they refuse to tell. If someone's ever deceived you by hiding the truth, remember, you have the right to be angry. You have the right to say no. And most importantly, you have the right to walk away to protect your self-respect. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever been in a situation like this, share it in the comments, not just to get it off your chest, but to remind others they're not alone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more real-life stories right here on Reddit Echoes. Story 3. My sister burned my designer stuff. Out of jealousy, and my family told me to forgive her because she's young. I like to think I'm a pretty forgiving person. I mean, I once forgave my ex-boyfriend for sleeping with my best friend. He said it was an accident, and I actually believed him for like 2 weeks. I even faked a smile when my current boyfriend gave me a fake designer purse for my birthday, and I knew it was fake because the logo was literally spelled wrong. But what my sister did recently, no. There's no forgiveness coming this time. I'm a 28-year-old woman working in finance. My job's high stress, long hours, a constant flood of deadlines and coffee, but it pays well. And you know what? I like designer things. Not to show off, not to make anyone feel small, but because when you work 12-hour days and haven't slept properly in weeks, buying something nice for yourself feels like survival. My little sister, let's call her Lily, is 21. She's an art student, emotionally unstable like a TikTok trend. And she has this belief that the entire world needs to understand her feelings at all times. I went home for the weekend to celebrate my mom's birthday. I live in a different city, but Mom begged me to come, so I made it work. I packed a few nice outfits too because I planned to catch up with some old friends. And let's be real, dressing well, instant confidence boost. Then, it happened. I opened my suitcase and my heart dropped into the trash can. My most expensive Dior dress had been slashed from neckline to hem like something out of a zombie runway show. My Louboutin heels. One was tossed into the backyard covered in mud and splattered with pink paint. And worst of all, my Chanel 555 bag, the one I saved for half a year to buy, it had a giant burn hole right in the middle of the logo. I'm not exaggerating. Someone literally set it on fire. I just stood there, frozen. A few seconds later, Lily walked into the room. She saw me holding the burned bag and smiled. "Oh, you found it. I kind of dropped a candle." I turned around so fast I thought my neck cracked. "Are you kidding me?" She shrugged. "You've got tons of expensive stuff. Losing one or two things, what's the big deal?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then my mom walked in. And you'd think she'd scold Lily, right? Nope. She looked at me and said, "Don't make a scene. She's young." She acted on impulse. At that moment, I felt like I'd been dropped into one of those family dramas where the main character is always misunderstood and the whole household defends the brat because she's young. Lily isn't young. She's 21, old enough to drink legally, old enough to understand that destroying someone else's property is literally a crime. So I asked her point blank, "Did you do it on purpose?" She looked me in the eye and said, "Yeah, I'm sick of you always dressing like some fancy princess. You make me want to puke." Cool. I didn't say another word. I called the police. The entire house freaked out. My mom screamed, "Are you insane? You're calling the police over family drama?" I said calm as ice, "Nope. I'm calling them because my sister destroyed over $10,000 worth of personal property. That's not family drama. That's a felony." Cops came. I handed over evidence, photos, security footage from the hallway outside my room, and her own lovely confession. Suddenly, our artsy little Lily didn't look so smug anymore. She got handcuffed and taken to the station, not jail, just to file a formal report. But for someone who's lived her whole life in a bubble of "I'm the center of the universe," that was basically a slap across the face. After that, my relatives came at me like I'd burned the family tree to the ground. My aunt, "You should have thought about the family's reputation." My uncle, "What man would marry a girl who's been involved with the cops?" My dad, "I don't agree with what she did, but I also don't support what you did." Wow. Unconditional love is really something, huh? I went ahead and pressed charges anyway. The fine wasn't huge, it was classified as damage under $20,000. Lily had to complete 40 hours of community service and repay a portion of the damages. The court also ordered her to attend anger management classes. As for me, I made a TikTok video not naming names, just talking about how it feels when a family member destroys your things and then the rest of your family turns against you for standing up for yourself. It blew up. People sent supportive messages. One small fashion brand even offered to gift me a new purse for women who refuse to be stepped on. My mom cried and said, "You're tearing this family apart." I said, "Mom, if keeping the peace means letting my sister destroy my things and insult me while everyone stays silent, then I'd rather choose silence forever." I moved out, cut off contact with Lily, let the relatives talk. Because here's what I learned. Family isn't about who always gets forgiven. It's about the people who don't ask you to sacrifice your self-respect just to keep the peace. Have you ever been hurt by a family member, then told to be the bigger person because they're family? Ever been made the villain? Simply because you refuse to tolerate toxic behavior, I've forgiven more times than I can count. But this time I chose to protect myself. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever felt betrayed by your own family, share your experience in the comments. Because your story matters. You deserve to be heard. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more true stories told in real voices only here on Reddit Echoes. Story 4. My best friend slept with my husband, then wrote a post calling me unforgiving for cutting her off. I used to believe something incredibly naive, that if someone has been by your side for 10 years, they'd never betray you. Well, I was wrong. So wrong. I'm a 32-year-old woman. I've been married for 4 years. And from the outside, my life looked stable. My husband, let's call him Jason, is a quiet, low-key guy who works in tech. My best friend Carla is his opposite, bubbly, chatty, the kind of girl you could call at 3 a.m. just to gossip about Facebook drama. Carla and I met in college. We were dorm roommates, traveled together. We're bridesmaids at each other's weddings. She was the sister I never had. I never imagined that sister would end up sleeping with my husband. It started with something small. Jason's hoodie. I was doing laundry and found a hoodie I didn't recognize. It wasn't Jason's size. It was pastel pink and said, "Bad girls go everywhere." Definitely not his style. I asked him about it. He said, "Oh, must have grabbed someone else's by mistake at the gym." I believed him. I wanted to believe him. But deep down, a quiet alarm had started ringing in my gut. A few days later, Jason started leaving for work earlier than usual, and I noticed he was wearing a new fragrance, something floral, feminine, something I never saw in our bathroom cabinet. When I asked about it, he said he accidentally used a female co-worker's perfume. Right, accidentally, again. That's when I started noticing everything. I placed an AirTag inside Jason's wallet. And one Thursday afternoon, I saw the tracker ping from a location, a cheap motel 7 kilometers from our house. My heart nearly exploded. I called a taxi. I didn't even know what I was doing. I just knew if I stayed home wondering I'd go insane. I got to the motel and told the front desk I was Jason's wife and that he'd forgotten his medication. The receptionist, probably sensing the drama in my voice, pointed to the elevator and said, "Room 502. Go on up. I won't stop you." I didn't knock. Jason had used his ID to check in, so the staff let me go straight up. I opened the door, and there she was, Carla, lying there barely covered by a blanket. Jason stood up white as a ghost, fumbling to pull on his pants. Silence. No yelling, no screaming. I just laughed. Not a happy laugh, a cracked, bitter laugh. Carla spoke first. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen." I looked at her and said, "You didn't mean it. How many times do you have to sleep with my husband before it counts as meaning it?" Jason stammered, "I didn't know it would go this far." I cut him off. "Oh, you knew. You just didn't think I'd find out. I didn't stay. I left them there alone in their guilt, trapped in that crappy hotel room with nothing but each other and the mess they made. The next day, I packed Jason's things. Each shirt, each belt, each charger I stuffed into a bag felt like pulling a knife out of my chest and tossing it out. I emailed him about our separation. I hired a lawyer. I did it all quietly. But Carla, oh Carla, wasn't done. 1 week later, she posted a long status on Facebook. "Friendship is fragile. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is forgiveness. But some people would rather punish than heal." She didn't mention my name. But all our mutual friends knew exactly who she was talking about. She, the one who tore my marriage apart, was now playing the victim, calling me unforgiving. I stayed silent. Until a friend sent me a screenshot of Carla messaging someone else. I always knew she couldn't keep Jason. She's boring. And just like that, I wasn't angry anymore. I felt free. Because now I knew the truth. Carla was never my friend. She was just waiting for the day I was weak enough to steal what I had. The divorce went through quickly. No kids, not much shared property. Jason tried to apologize. He said sleeping with Carla was the biggest mistake of his life. I asked one thing: did you ever think about how I would feel when you were in bed with her? He said nothing. And that was the last time I saw him. As for Carla, our mutual friends dropped her one by one. Some unfollowed, others unfriended. She went full victim mode again, crying about cancel culture. Me, I changed jobs, joined a gym, traveled solo. I learned to sleep without needing someone beside me. I learned to drink coffee alone and still enjoy it. I learned to love myself again. If you've ever been betrayed, not just by a partner, but by someone you trusted with your whole heart, let me tell you this: you are not weak because it hurts. You are strong because you walked away. Sometimes it takes losing a crappy husband and a toxic best friend to finally find yourself again. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever lost both love and friendship in one crushing blow, leave a comment below. You are not alone. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to hear more true stories, raw emotions, and real healing. Only here on Reddit Echoes. Story 5. I caught my fiancé cheating. Right on our brand new wedding bed. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who gets cheated on. Not because I thought I was special, but because I believed something simple. If you love someone honestly, treat them well and stay loyal. They won't betray you. Yeah. I was naive. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and I was once engaged to the woman I thought was the love of my life. Let's call her Mel. Mel and I met at a small business workshop hosted by a friend. She had these warm brown eyes, a soft voice, and a smile that made you want to spend your whole life just keeping it on her face. We dated for over 2 years before I proposed during a trip to Dalat. She cried, said yes, hugged me like she never wanted to let go. We planned the wedding, picked out invitations, booked the venue, tried on outfits together. Everything was lining up perfectly. Until the Saturday afternoon, I showed up 2 hours earlier than planned. We'd bought a brand new wedding bed, and she said the delivery would come around 3 p.m. I told her I'd be over by 5 to help set it up, but my work wrapped up earlier than expected. So I stopped by her favorite bakery near her place, just a little surprise with her favorite cake. I didn't call ahead. I thought it'd be cute. Spoiler. It was a surprise, all right, but there was nothing cute about it. I had a key. We were about to be married, it made sense. So I opened the door, stepped inside, and called out Mel. I brought your favorite cake. No reply, but I heard soft music coming from the bedroom, and sounds. Low moans. I thought she was watching a movie or something. So I walked closer. The door was slightly ajar, and then I saw it. The one sight no man, no person should ever have to witness. Mel, completely naked, on the brand new wedding bed, with a guy I'd never seen before. And they weren't just sleeping, they were having fun. Loud, passionate, utterly unaware I was standing right outside. I backed away, didn't scream, didn't punch a wall. I just quietly closed the door and pulled out my phone, not to share anything, but because I needed proof that I wasn't imagining it. 10 minutes later, I opened the door. Mel looked like she'd seen a ghost. The guy fumbled with his pants and yelled, "Wait, this isn't what it looks like." Oh, but it was. I looked Mel dead in the eyes and said, "I came early. Thought you'd be happy I brought cake." She whispered, "I'm sorry." I nodded. "I'm sorry too. Sorry I loved the wrong person." And I walked out. No yelling, no breakdown, no fight. Just heartbreak. I sat in my car for an hour, music playing but unheard. One question looped in my head: why we didn't fight. I treated her with respect, never lied, never hid a thing. I even transferred most of my assets into joint ownership to avoid complications after marriage. So why? That night she texted me non-stop, missed calls, long paragraphs, voice messages filled with sobbing. It just happened. I was overwhelmed with wedding planning. I got weak. And then the one line that made me sick: "I still love you." It was just sex. Right. Just sex with a stranger. On the bed we bought for our future, but she loved me, I blocked her. The next morning I hired a moving service and cleared out everything related to the wedding. The dress, the decorations, the printed invitations gone. Returned or trashed. A few days later, her mother called me, begged me to give Mel a second chance. She said everyone makes mistakes. She's still young. Mel was 29, not 16, and this wasn't missing a curfew or forgetting a birthday. This was cheating. A mutual friend messaged me and said, "Don't you think you're being a little harsh? Planning a wedding is stressful?" I replied, "Wedding stress doesn't give anyone a license to undress with someone else." And then, because of course Mel posted a cryptic Facebook status, some people only know how to punish instead of heal. I know I messed up, but I also know I deserve a second chance. She didn't tag me, but we all knew who it was about. I didn't respond. I just kept living my life. But I did do one thing. I saved the video, put it on a USB, not to show anyone, just to remind myself that my gut was right. 3 months later, I met someone new. Her name's Sarah. No, I didn't fall in love instantly. But she was the first person who made me laugh again without guilt. As for Mel, I heard she broke up with the guy after a month. Not compatible, apparently. Some people still say I was too cold. But they weren't there. They weren't holding cake, opening a bedroom door, and watching their future explode in one split second. If you've ever been betrayed by the person you thought you'd spend forever with, remember this: forgiveness isn't an obligation. Sometimes forgiving yourself for loving the wrong person is what matters most. I don't hate Mel, but I don't need her in my life either. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've been through heartbreak like this, share it in the comments. Tell your story, because talking about it, that's where healing begins. And if this story made you feel something, like the video, subscribe and hit the bell for more true stories, raw pain, and real healing, only here on Reddit Echoes. Thanks for sticking around and listening to today's stories. Maybe you've learned something. Maybe you just want to hit replay because the drama was that addictive. Either way, these were real stories with real pain, and real people trying to heal one step at a time. If you've ever gone through something similar, drop a comment. We read them all. If this made you stop and think, give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next true Reddit story that'll make you nod and say, if this were a movie, it'd be a box office hit. See you in the next video, only here on Reddit Echoes.